not.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example, and you're going to find this just a little familiar. Let's say that there's the safety committee of a co-housing community, and they have to take up pet policies, and they take up pet policies, and the next time they meet, they take up the gun control policy. They have a member of their circle who says, absolutely no one can have guns here. I will not pass this proposal about safety rules regarding taking bullets out and locking cabinets, even though we have 2 hunters who are founders, and Bob, the off-duty policeman who has to carry his, whatever it is, Glock, with him, because that's what off-duty policemen do. No, we may have no guns here. The hunters and Bob will have to keep their off the property. And they said, but you're objecting to the proposal based on something that has to do with your personal value, and really we're here to create safety in the community. We don't have a agreed upon rule in the community that nobody can have a gun. And Hildegard, I'll pick on her again, says, I'm sorry, I know very clearly what I want, and I know that we need to be a nonviolent community, and guns are made to kill people or else animals, and I do not want violence here, and I'm not allowing it. When we had this workshop that I was a part of and got to be at, and a bunch of co-housers from around New England came to it, we had 2 trainers, Jerry and John, and I kept role-playing this obnoxious woman who was completely serene and gracious but unrelenting in her viewpoint.
You did a great job, Ruth.
Oh, thank you. I forgot that you were there. I'm so glad you said that. The actress in me is so glad. Okay, so finally John said, in a bit of frustration, do you remember this? He just sort of said, Diana, I don't think anybody would ever act like that. The room erupted. There were people waving their hands in the air going, this is why we came to this workshop! Because they knew what happens in community, you know. So John says, oh, I see, you're stress testing the system. So the answer is what you do is you keep working with the person and working with them until you finally might realize that they are actually disrupting the whole purpose of your safety circle. And now you've got a very specific aim in the safety circle, which is that we produce the following services for the group for this reason. So it's very clear and specific. So Hildegard's objection needs to be based in and tied to the aim, but hers isn't. Hers is tied to something different that's not agreed on. They can take this whole issue to the higher circle, or to put it another way, the more abstract circle, the general circle. Or someone in the circle, I'm going to pretend these are people. Let's say this is the operational leader and this is the delegate or representative. But somebody else maybe says, I propose that we remove Hildegard from the circle. Blasphemy! Heresy! How can you do that in community? You get to. Because Hildegard is stymieing and blocking and stopping and stifling the whole process of creativity and moving forward towards their aim. And she's not in a community that's about not having guns and nonviolence. There's been no agreement about that. It's her personal thing. Have you ever seen anything like this in a community? Just raise your eyebrow. Don't raise your hand. Okay. So, I mean, I don't want to, say anything too pointed. Okay, so then here's the proposal, which is basically like this. Adios, Hildy. And Hildegard, who's this person here, doesn't have consent rights in that round. So this person proposes it. The facilitator, who might be this person, says, okay, we have a proposal. Clarifying questions, quick reactions. Now we have a consent round. No objection, no objection. We're not asking Hildy. No objection, no objection, no objection. Well, we need to ask you to step out of the circle, Hildegard. This doesn't mean you can't nominate yourself to return at some other time. This doesn't mean you can't ask another circle if you can join it. It only means it seems like we need to have people in this circle who have the same aim that we do, which is to provide policies and suggestions to the group regarding safety issues in our community. Guns, dogs, children's safety, whatever. Possibly this is not the right circle for you because we have a particular aim and you want to do a different thing. Now, Hildegard might be upset. Once again, I'm going to ask you a question. Did we sign up for that we caretake Hildegard's interior landscape when we all joined co-housing? Is co-housing about therapy?
I think that's dangerous. I really do think that's dangerous territory.
Could you say
it is about, it is, when you enter community, you choose relationship. And the people in the community are, it is about relationship every bit as much as it is about getting things done to me.
Well, that's very true. So let's talk about what this does to the relationship in that circle.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that's wrong, but the statement as you put it out makes me bristle.
Like, we're not about therapy, you mean you would prefer to hear, we are every bit as much about our goals for the community as we are about relationships.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way of saying it. You know, maybe that's a better way. That sounds better to me.
Okay,
the other way kind of disregards this person who. This person is
our neighbor and our friend.
Right. Exactly.
And we appreciate all her fine qualities. And we care about her and we don't want her to be hurt. I'm sorry if I spoke insensitively. Possibly what you're hearing me doing is compensating for 5 years of hell because of the going the other way, which is taking care of our three Hildegards to the detriment of us ever being able to move forward and losing some of our most wonderful young people who don't stay. So possibly it's pain and hurt you're hearing, and I apologize to you if I was a little blind to that in myself. So thanks for pointing it out.
Okay.
So here's another just quick thing to say, to kind of keep addressing this. I believe the relationships in the circle will become damaged if we don't figure out a way to do something. And
I agree with that.
we'll probably stop meeting, and there'll be some community demoralization because we, the safety committee, aren't doing any of our jobs. Do you have any comments, Gaia, before we call on some others that have raised
Well,
their hand?
Mary was.
Well, just want to hear from Gaia about this.
About this particular thing?
Because this is your specialty.
Well, I am a psychologist, but I mean, I appreciate some of that was just wording, because I heard you say that worded differently. You were okay with it, and I know that you really value community and relationship, or you wouldn't be so passionate about it all. And the other thing is that Hildegard, that may not be appropriate in that particular circle, for that particular task and everything, is still dearly loved and cared about because she plays the piano in the common house, and she teaches this kid over here, and you know what I mean? Everybody's valued for all kinds of different ways and reasons. So just because she's not nominated for one particular thing, or needs to leave one circle, and it doesn't mean that she in total is uncared about or anything. It gets back to authenticity and and supporting her in growing and learning and being in places where she would be supported. I mean, it can't be too fun for her to be in a group where she's always at odds with everybody else there too. So it's like kind of reality therapy, if you will. I wanted to comment to what you said about consensus somehow being integrated with. That's very possible. And in my simple way of putting it is, dynamic governance is like a hierarchy, if you will, of circles that are interconnected with double links, but where the information flow can go up as well as down the organization, as well as lateral. And within any circle, so the circle, let's call it the landscaping committee, okay? The operational leader or the boss can at any time say, or even as a policy for their little group, can pass a policy saying, in our group we're just doing landscaping. I'd like our decisions, I propose that our decisions be made at least for the next 2 weeks or about this thing on a consensus basis, because we're just wanting to get it done. And if everybody consented to that, they could do that. Within a confined area, a group, a committee, a circle could certainly use consensus.
I mean, I think, and maybe, I'm sorry, but I just consider dynamic governance to be pretty much a much more sophisticated, structured version of consensus. I guess that's what I'm saying. Maybe we're just using the words different. I mean,
we've struggled here a little bit about, so what's the difference between consensus and consent? If consent is kind of the decision-making thing of dynamic governance, is how is that different or similar to consensus?
Yeah.
Right, I mean, because I think the way I have understood what we've tried to do when we're, doing our best consensus work, it's been hearing everybody, accepting objections, not blocking consensus unless it's for the, for the better of the community. And dropping, there might be objections raised, as there are in dynamic governance, but, you wouldn't block unless, again, on principle, you wouldn't block unless you really still needed to be heard and there was something that wasn't good for the community. So, I think at the best, the way we've practiced consensus, or the way I understand it,
When done correctly.
when done correctly, the principles are the same, and that's why I'm saying I see dynamic governance
There's a slight difference.
as okay, yeah,
Well, so let me add something.
yeah,
I think you're right. When consensus is practiced correctly, it's very similar to dynamic governance practiced correctly.
right,
And I can see why you'd say that. There's a little nuance to add, which might give you some insight into how come I'm on this soapbox. And that is, it's still, when consensus is practiced correctly, that proposal damn well better be good, because we have to predict and control the future and get something that's so good, because it will be difficult to change. And in dynamic governance, we can do good enough for now, safe enough to try, because we've built in criteria, and we've got the expectation, because we're in a whole different system of reality that's got feedback loops. And there is a higher bar for approving a proposal in consensus and a lower bar for approving a proposal in dynamic governance. We need, a lot of people incorrectly practicing consensus think you have to love it and wholly, fully support it, and they're just not well trained. And then there's people who think, I just need to accept it, support it, approve it. And then there's people who understand correctly, I just need to be able to live with it. Well, let's go one lower. It's good enough for now, safe enough to try. And then here's a block, let's kill it. And then here's an objection, I've got an idea to make it better. And here's an objection, I don't know what I have about this, but there's something, let's talk about it. And here's an objection, I thought of an addition, something we didn't think of. This is a kind of a different vibe. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I think it's semantics.
Maybe it is.
I think it's how consensus maybe has been practiced.
I want to answer
I
that.
just-
So
let's
I
call.
did the training with John Buck and Jerry and a couple of others.
Okay.
You talked about it earlier, which is you don't have to be a super duper facilitator, that the technology of rounds and getting out all the ideas, all the objections, all the solutions happens much more easily. You said that? If that doesn't happen in consensus,
But I'm
you have to
okay.
have
So
a very skilled.
yeah. So are you defining consensus as,
You can't
anyway,
define
maybe
consent.
I should just be quiet. I mean,
Well,
to
let me
me, the
answer it,
spirit
And then
of
I've got an answer
consensus.
too after you.
I hope this is interesting.
No, this
because I'm okay.
Well, I
Many
want to
people
answer
might
it.
be asking this.
I want to
Because it might
answer it in metaphor.
It might just be that we're using the word
No.
differently, but I think that people who are attached to the idea of consensus, the things that I see as the spirit of consensus, I don't think dynamic governance
Well,
violates
one
that.
piece.
The values are the
Yeah.
same. The values are the same. Equivalence and transparency.
A lot of
Adding efficiency.
Yeah, the thing I'd add to this is that the consent process, dynamic governance, is it's a fairly defined process. Whereas consensus, there are, you do consensus this way. If I'm facilitating, I do it slightly differently. If Diane does it, she does it her way. So it's harder. We don't have a definition of what consensus is to actually contrast with this, because you have this vision of what it is, and I'm totally with that vision. I think sociocracy does it, but we just have different ways of using words and what we mean, and then there's the practice which doesn't match the realities, and so it's a hard animal to pin down.
Yeah.
And let's go to Gaia, and then I had something I want to say, and let's call on you next. And you tell me your name.
Randa. All right.
So just in metaphor, are you familiar with permaculture?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Everybody pretty much somewhat?
Some.
Well, she is.
She is. Talk to her.
So permaculture, anyway, the permaculture, comparing permaculture to organic gardening, I mean, it's completely different. You know, like if you go from like regular chemical gardening to go to organic gardening, you think, oh, this is fantastic, right? But you go to permaculture and it's like another world.
Yeah.
And they may have similar principles in that they, you know, want to be good, kind to the earth, and they want to grow things, and that, you know, all of that kind of principles. But it's so not to use that word, but dynamically different to go when you get into the permaculture stuff and way approach. It's like old paradigm, new paradigm. It's just so much kinder to the earth, and so much more in harmony, and so much more productive and effective and efficient. Less, you know,
More yield, less
more
labor.
yield, less effort. It's just that would be the analogy,
But permaculture doesn't violate any of the principles of organic gardening.
No.
right?
That's
It
right.
includes it.
It
I think
includes
that's
it,
what
and
I'm
it's
saying.
just another
Yeah,
evolution
right.
of it. Yeah.
Great.
I have another take, but I want to say, let's always use this, what you just said. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
I love it.
That-
And I haven't forgotten you, Ron.
Mhm.
Got you right here. Okay. So I used to be the editor of Communities magazine, and person after person would try to write articles about sociocracy. It would piss me off. And first of all, I didn't like the name. I do now. But the other thing that would happen is that the person writing the article, and I always rejected them, would describe dynamic governance, which they call sociocracy, against the worst of consensus.
Yeah.
And I was a consensus trainer, for God's sakes. And I knew that it wasn't like that, or it shouldn't be like that, or communities that did that shouldn't do that, and I was going to go teach them that they shouldn't do that. They should do this, not that. And so I was all pissed off about it. Can I say that in here? Fewer
You said
people,
worse already.
The kids all went off to
later
sleep.
at night. And so I was all frustrated because I think it is not fair to compare the worst of one system with the best of another. Then I got to know dynamic governance. And then I finally got it. I kind of woke up. It was like an epiphany, and I went, oh, I get it. In consensus, you're free to do it incorrectly, and free to do it beautifully, and free to do it like this, or like this, or like this. It's sort of like free-form amoebas pseudo-potting around the pond. And dynamic governance has a structure that doesn't even let you get to those excesses and those difficulties. It keeps you within the track of goodwill, efficiency, equivalence, and transparency. Then I got to thinking about what one of my community members said when she said to me, this is a consensus-based community, and that's why I'm here. And I said, come on, it's also based on permaculture and all these other, being an eco-village. And wait a sec, consensus is just a tool. It's not the values that what isn't really what you care about is equivalence and transparency and respect and equality and equal voice and a better decision than you'd otherwise have because you've got the shared group wisdom. Isn't it not consensus actually that you want, but the values underneath it that draw you? And she said, well, yeah. And I said, why couldn't another system that had the same values and the same different strategies but fulfill those values, wouldn't that be equally good to you? And she said, yeah. And so then she realized it wasn't consensus she was glued to. It was fairness, kindness, equivalence, and a better decision.
Good relationships.
Yeah. Before we call on Rhonda, there was one more piece of something I wanted to do. Is your name Joe?
John,
John.
nice try though. My brother's name is Joe.
Yeah, I was talking about him. Well, when you said what you said, you did a gift for the room and a gift for me, and I wanted to kind of honor you a little bit and say maybe you said what other people were feeling but were afraid to say. If so, I apologize to all of you if I was kind of like expressing too harshly, born out of my frustration of all that pain in our community. So I want to apologize to all of you, not just you. So if you will please accept it. But wait, if this is about that, can you hold off? Because Rhonda has been patient with me.
Mary, I appreciate what you're saying, but it's a bit theoretical to me. And in terms of practice of consensus in our community, I think quite often things are squashed. Diane did a good example before they even get to decision making.
Yeah.
So this system, I think, will bring out more ideas for us to work through and see if they're good enough, rather than get squashed. Oh, never happen. So
I agree.
it doesn't even get there.
That's
No,
a difference.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my point was just that this is a better, I see it as a better way to do, a potentially better way to do consensus. But again, I think I'm using the word consensus differently than a lot of people are, so.
You might be saying, in addition to what you're saying, another way you could say it might be, I see this as a potentially better way to do equivalence, equality, transparency, patience, fairness, kindness, better proposals.
I'll want to talk to you later about the
Okay, we can always Skype or
the
email.
etymology. No, because, you know, I mean, in working with groups, it's helpful for
Sure. Let's
me to
just
have my
let's just
words
talk
straight,
on
but
email or
I-
Skype or
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
Then she had
Yes.
I think the discussion you had with John, it's late, my brain isn't working very well, underlies,
Auf Wiedersehen, danke.
I've been part of the DG group and I just support it and I just love the model. And the scenario that you portrayed about the gun control
Mm-hmm.
and Hildegard having a different view and then asking her to leave, from what I know of our community, we would not have the stomach
Right.
to do that. And so does that mean we couldn't use the model effectively? Because I just really can't see us going that far with any committee. And it's just, we have a certain way of operating here. And I think it has really hurt us. It has hurt our efficiency. It has hurt our relationships. It has hurt our morale. But I don't really see that changing.
This seems like a fair and realistic assessment, and one could say this for almost every co-housing community, and one could say this for mine. I think that there is a ratio between years of pain and willingness to go against a previously accepted culture. Mm-hmm. So after 13 and a half years of our Hildegard, we asked her to leave our business meetings for a year. That was unthinkable before. Although a few of us wanted to do that, and more numbers wanted to do that as time went on. And finally, after 13 and a half years and the most egregious incident, more people were fed up. So it was what you might call the rising index of fed up. It was the FI, the FI quotient, the fed up index. And yet, maybe this community and most communities would never want to do such a thing. So there's another option. Oh, by the way, yes, a community can adopt things they want to do from DG and other things they don't want to do, or they can try different things as an experiment for a particular period of time and then reevaluate it with certain criteria at certain points in time. Or the community can pick parts and use them, but remember that bicycle. And so another thing that safety committee, that safety circle could do is say, well, Hildegard, this seems to be a rock and a hard place, because the thing that you want, and we care about you, and we want you to be happy, is a thing that's got an issue deeper than the issue of our aim. And our aim was given to us by the general circle, so let's all go there. So they all go over to the general circle, get on the agenda, and go, this is our difficulty. And then some wise person says, and I'm now going to quote Doug Chamberlain, and I'm trying to remember what community he's from.
I don't know that not sure he's in.
I think it's Belfast co-housing.
He's not in it.
Oh, he's not? He was there. Well, he's a hero of mine. He stood up and said, I got an idea. In the general circle, there could be a proposal that Hildegard proposed that the group adopts a new value and practice, which is to have no guns anywhere, ever, forever, for the following reasons. She proposes it, and we assist her with this proposal. And if Hildegard says, I'm not doing that proposal, somebody goes, okay, I will be your stand-in person, and I will propose it. So Fred proposes it. And the group has so many objections, because they never meant to do that, that it's an overwhelming vote of no confidence. And the facilitator says there isn't enough support in this to create both and proposals. Now remember, Hildegard has been asked 23 times to make both and not make both and proposals, but assist the safety circle in supporting various both and proposals that people come up with, and she hasn't been able to support any. She's objected 23 times, let's say. So now we're in the big circle and we're saying, let's just test this out in terms of our community values and practices. Are you getting a crook in your neck?
Yes.
And so Hildegard watches as the general circle doesn't really want that proposal. So then Hildegard says, well, y'all are just the delegates and the operational leaders, what about the whole community? And they say, okay, then let's take this proposal to the whole community, and we'll just call a special meeting, and we'll have everybody here. So now there's a really big circle, and the proposal is made, and it's objection, 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 pass. I don't want Hildegard to be mad at me. Objection, 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 pass. Objection, objection, objection. No objection, I don't want guns either. Objection, objection, objection. And so Hildegard gets the message. She gets the message more deeply and more cellularly in her body, in her nervous system, than she might have gotten it. Just talk to the 5 people on the safety committee.
Yeah.
So, asking her to leave the circle is only one option. It's not the only option, because you've got a lot of options you can use in this. So, you had a comment?
Well, I was going to say, and then Hildegard runs weeping from the room.
That's right, she does. She does run with
And
the
then then what?
Then she goes home to her house and she cries there. And then she uses her emotional strength, as she has done her whole life when she feels disappointed, to get back on the horse again. Or she feels sad for a longer time, or she feels multiple different emotions, and then she finally feels a little better, and then she's back in community life, or she never returns to community life, or she leaves the community.
But she finds a community, a spiritual community that believes in her beliefs and her values,
Or,
and it's a win.
or what she does is realizes this group is all wrong for me, and then what she does is she goes and joins the nonviolent group who would never have guns, and she's so much happier. And they're happy too because they have a fine new member who's already what you might call community trained. So my guess is that Hildegard is not being harmed. She's just expressing and feeling sadness, disappointment. But then I felt sadness and disappointment before, and I kind of managed to continue living and stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm a better community member for the times that people told me, Diana, knock it off. Do you know what I mean? So, are you okay? I'm concerned that I might have offended you, and I'm trying to check in.
No, yes, I'm okay. I think that what you brought up about the sort of reality of, since we're neighbors and friends, it's so difficult to say. It's so difficult to say, no, you can't do that. I'm not here to be your therapist. I can't do this for you. I can't go this far for you. And that's my thing, right? And but there are ways of sorting it out. And
Do you suppose you could imagine a scenario in which, out of respect for her feelings and wanting to be kindly and accommodating, we take it to the general circle,
Yes.
and then we take it to the whole community, and a couple of weeks or months have passed, and we don't have a gun safety policy in effect yet, but we're working towards it. And then the whole community, this objection, objection, objection around the whole circle, and she runs crying from the room, just like you said, and we say in the circle, would we find 2 or 3 of her best friends to make a special effort to provide support and affection and to listen to her, and so she'll be deeply heard, because we care about her so much. And we do want to move on with our community business, but not at the expense of expressing our care for her. Would that feel a little better to you?
yes, because that's usually.
See, I think it's such a stretch for us because in the past, we've just completely stopped our community business if someone would be hurt.
Yeah.
And then we have 99% of the community hurting.
Exactly.
to caretake that person's hurt feeling.
Has anybody ever noticed this weird ratio in community, which is that the person who might get hurt more easily and take maybe more time in the group for processing getting hurt more easily becomes the community aristocrat, king or queen that we cater to, and the reason that most of us are here and the things most of us want we don't do, and then we all feel horrible, but we dare not say a word because it might seem like we were a heartless, empatheticless monster.
But they're controlling the whole thing.
No, I don't think so, because I think that the person who is most challenged by an issue, it moves.
Moves out of the
It
community.
moves, I mean, it's me, and it's
Different
this
people,
issue,
yeah.
and the next issue is Mary's issue. So I don't see it a person or a set of people particularly.
Ah,
And I think that the other piece I'm getting from this conversation is for us to help each other remember that it's about the issue, it's not about the person. Even though it is coming out of somebody's deeply held values,
yes.
personal values that come up against the rest of the community being comfortable with what the decision is.
Yes.
And I think it's helpful to support that person even though their cause is being
Right.
decided against. We have to keep, remembering that it is about personal as opposed to what's for the good of the community, and trusting everybody else who is okay with it, and helping people see
Yeah.
that they have to let go and allow that the majority are feeling this way.
Yeah. You are speaking to the dual roles of all of us in community to preserve relationship while we also think about issues. And probably because I'm leaning to the left brain and have lived in a community that's been sort of like, the cycles of hell, thank you, Dante, is overreacting. I forget to also say what Gaia would say first, which is, yes, we preserve the relationship in every way that we can, if we want to. I come from a community where we preserve relationships, have talking stick circles, healing circles, the cart chairs, and then gave up and just fell into despair and quit caring.
That relationships were not preserved as a result.
Nor
That
were
other
the-
relationships,
Nor was the community.
yeah.
Nor was the relationship with all the people who withdrew and or left. So what we had was an attempt to, this is the thing I'm trying to get at. We preserved, and tried to protect the relationship of the person who is most obviously in pain and most obviously hurting, because of that human nature piece that's about relationship and compassion and empathy. While we were not observing that a whole bunch of people who seem to be much more doing better with daily life happiness in their life on a daily basis were also hurting, but seemed to be more personally self-empowered, so the whole group ignored them. And of course, they packed their bags and left. The community lost energy. There was a brain drain, if I can say that. And we were paying attention to some relationships, but not others. That happens in communities a lot. I've seen it. And I don't know how to talk about it. Because if I do, I feel I might offend someone. But I'm a kind of an equal opportunity offender, so I hope you don't mind if I just try to tell you what I actually see.
And to say something about your question, you said something about, well, if I can't do that, I don't see my community doing that particular thing, should we not even do this type of a structure? And I would say, well, no, don't let that stop you. You're going to do what you do, and it's okay. Whatever you do is going to be fine, because then you'll be able to do it, see what happens, adjust it, modify it, according to whatever criteria and whatever time frames, and it'll be dynamic and it'll be fine. So, yeah. John Buck keeps saying, this isn't formulaic. It isn't like an exact thing. It's a set of principles and procedures, and that you'll use it as it's most appropriate for you, and it'll be fine.
And because it's dynamic, you can try new things and evaluate them and see if it works.
How do you respond when people say, well, if you have a general circle that's in the middle, don't they hold all the power? Don't those...
Actually do have
Hey.
a way to respond to that. Does anybody ever say that? Yes?
Yeah.
The two communities that I know that are having difficulty and challenges, and they're in the steep learning curve to get out of them, to get to using it in a way that makes them happy, have had people who said, why should I be excluded? Which is like looking at the glass of lemonade half empty, isn't it? And saying, I insist on being there. I don't want any decisions made by this group. This is the power group. And I'm thinking, please don't let your pain about power abuses that you've seen in our culture and that you personally experienced color your perception and have you look at a thing that's not power over as if it was power over. And then I tell them how they do it at Habitat Quebec. And I actually, in workshops, and I wanted to tell you this, Jerry, because it's kind of fun. You know how kids like to get on the floor and play Legos? So what we like to do in some circles in teaching sociocracy is I get like 8-ounce canning jar lids that are silver on one side and white on the other. And I get these little arrows that are green and blue. And I put them on the floor after the groups pretty much got used to double linking. And then we make general circles and subcircles. And I always call them more concrete, more abstract circles and more concrete circles, so that people can get over their higher, lower circle thing that they go through. I ask people, are you having like your hackles raised that I just said higher and lower? They go, yes. They go, oh, well, just think concrete, abstract. Or I say, oh, just think, bigger, littler. Just think big picture, more concrete, more concrete. Anyway, we do that. We put them on the floor, and always, and like the little arrows, and people are looking at these circles and going, oh, wow, this is fun, because they're playing with little things, on the floor. Brings out the little kid in everybody, And then there's, smaller ones, even smaller ones.
The flower diagram.
So then somebody at some point says, well, what about, and they say the very question you asked. So then I wish I really did have canning jar lids, because then I could move them around, but instead I can't move these things. So then we say, okay, here's the general circle, and we take all these people and we put them here. This is what Cohabitat Quebec does in Quebec City. Now they had a because he passed away. Oh, he's my dear friend too. And they had a live-in sociocracy trainer who had trained and got certified by the Netherlands Place. And so he was always there to help assist, and they trained every single new person coming in. Whereas the two communities having difficulty did not train anyone coming in. One community has used it for 5 years. The first 3 years as they were getting developed, and construction and architects, and up till move-in, and just right after move-in they used it diligently. And they all knew how to do it, but they'd had so much turnover.
They loved it.
They loved it.
Oh my gosh.
They loved it. They made these statements that I've been quoting, but this is 5 years now. Only 2 of the original founders who had been trained in it are still there, and everybody else is a new person, and they got no training. So they project onto what they think it is, like a Rorschach inkblot test, what they perceive it to be, and then they have fights over how you do it, and then they say, well, that's your sociocracy, and this is my sociocracy. And I'm thinking, for God's sakes, all you have to do is look it up. And so they aren't doing well, but Habitat Quebec has their general circle here, and now I'm going to make red so that you can see what. And so here's the general circle. And they're having their general circle meeting. And here's everybody else. Some of these people are in other circles, and some of these people aren't in other circles. And all of these people will someday be in this circle, because in your circle that you're in, landscaping, finance, membership, marketing, common house, common meals, whatever, some day or other you might nominate yourself, or somebody might nominate you for delegate or operational leader, and then you're going to end up here anyways. And I've lived in community 10 years, and I know damn well that sometimes I'm the minute taker for all the guys on land use being of service in a clerical way, and another time I'm the focalizer of the committee, and another time I'm the one who's bringing in the snacks and the support role, and another time I'm the one who's coming up with all the proposals and running that meeting like son of a gun. I know that leadership shifts all around, but then I've had loads of community experience, and so have you, and you know this too, right? So, these people are here, listening and watching. Here's a proposal. Any clarifying questions? I got one. Okay, what is it? Da 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 da. Okay, thanks. I got one. Okay, what is it? Da, da, da. Okay, thanks. Here's the focalizer that night. Okay.
Wait, are you saying that while the general circle's having its meeting, all these other people are in the meeting?
Yeah, just think fishbowl. They're not in it. They're sitting in chairs all around it.
It's just a
And
way,
that's-
it's a
that's-
way to do it.
That's how all the general circle meetings are run?
In
No.
Habitat, Quebec.
I see.
Let me just tell you how they do it.
Yeah.
So then the facilitator says, okay, to this proposal, proposal A, any quick reactions? Oh, wait, they're going this way. I got one. Okay, what is it? Thank you. I do too. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Hey, let me point out the data. Oh my God, you're right. Big important thing we never thought of. This person pointed it out. So this whole group benefits because they were there. Okay, yeah, we have to make it affordable, right? Okay, let's lower the price. Okay, thanks. Thanks so much. I know we forgot we didn't have that in the budget. Okay, great. Okay, so now, consent round. Start with you. No objection. Objection. Oh, thank you so much. What's your objection? Oh, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, now let's create a both-and proposal with your concerns and why we're doing this in the first place. Well, what if we did this? 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 How about this? Okay, listen, let me put this all together. What if we did this, and this? Yeah. Okay. Clarifying questions. What do you mean by that? Okay, fine. Okay, quick reactions. Da 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 da. I got one. Da 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 da. I got one. Okay. Consent round. Okay, we'll start with you. No objection, 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 no objection. Let's celebrate. We made a decision. Who celebrates and jumps up? All of them. They have efficiency, transparency. These people don't have consent rights, but they get to watch, support, help, and enjoy. They get to feel included, but their efficiency is not reduced. That's what they do on Quebec.
And contribute.
Yeah.
And contribute.
Contribute ideas.
Contribute ideas, right? This is a thing a group could do if they wanted to.
So the one challenge I see in that is, okay, that meeting's going to take twice as long.
But not 5 times as long, like those 2 communities that are riding the bike only partially. It's a kind of a compromise. If I was the queen of the universe, I'd have these people simply trust these people. However, there is one way for them to trust them, and that's to do this for a while and go, I'm not going to that meeting, they do a great job.
Yeah.
I think, see, that's such an interesting point that you just made, and I think that's sort of the crux of it, and it's part of the question that I've been holding on to, which is the rollout and the complexity of rolling out something that is this new, you know, and in the context where there is some mistrust, you know, and I know we've been working with it and dissolving it and using, you know, some of the tools that you talked about, the restorative circles and so on and so forth. But yeah, I'm just wondering what kind of things both of you guys have to say about you know,
How to shift
about
to it?
how to shift to it and how to build in trust, like how to have some flexibility. Like this is a very flexible system that is kind of set up thinking about the reality of the conflict that has you know, swirled around moving this forward, you know, and that is designed to build trust and have people kind of experience, you know, grow in the sense of experiencing the pride and the happiness and the efficiency and the trust, you know.
I have a few ideas. However, I'm wondering if you'd like to respond, and then I'll add to what you say.
Okay, just do it. it'll happen. It'll unfold as you practice it, you know. It's like being in any relationship, you know, as you get to know the other people in other ways, and with, you know, doing different ways of things together, the tasks and so on, using a structure like this, you know, you're still in the predict, control thinking. And I think with something like this, you can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but, you know, history shows that when people do this kind of work, they really do build their relationships and their trust with each other greatly, you know, with each other. And over time, it just keeps getting better, and the whole thing is more efficient. Like she said, something like this, and pretty soon nobody's in that outside fishbowl because they're out swimming or doing something else because they're trusting. And what's part of what's so beautiful about in dynamic governance is that each of these circles has relative autonomy from all the rest. You know, how great is that? You know, within a budget, you know, within their aim and so on. They have relative autonomy to carry out the task that their circle is designed to do, and, you know, somebody else isn't going to come in there and say, you know, you can't do it that way, like too often happens, you know, in other situations. But, does that make sense?
Oh, and I have some things to add too, and I see some yawning, and goodbye and thank you. Maybe we could come to a close
Bye.
after this topic for purposes of sleeping. So, I'd like to tell you what's going on in my community kind of briefly as a potential thing to perhaps give some ideas for what y'all could do. All of us at Earth Haven say y'all, and hardly any of us is from the South. We just think there should be a you plural in the English language, and there used to be. It was called you. Oh well.
News guys.
Yeah, that's one. Anyway, we tried to piece the elections process for a year as an experiment. People loved it, and they go, "Oh, we got to keep this." So it was a testing the waters, building trust thing. We didn't know so much trust would get created, but it did. Then we have our committees in 4 chunks, having to do with the physical stuff of the land, the labor contribution and the money, the communications stuff, and the spirit and how we feel. And we call those 4 things by weird Nigerian village names, and they're in the 4 elements. So the air one, which is the one I've been on all the committees of, membership, work exchangers, promotion, visitors, campground, website, blah, 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 blah. This is filled with people who want to try the whole thing in their circles of committees. Did you know that? The community you wouldn't ever pay to join, that you couldn't pay you to join. This is like 5 committees are going to try it this year. They're going to try, and they're going to link themselves. They're going to do double links. They're going to have all-air meetings of the general circle of the all-air delegates and operational leaders from each of these 5 committees, and from the individual managers, the blog, the newsletter, and stuff. And then there's another group of committees that I bet you next year will try it, because there's going to be a meme that passes into the community culture from these 5 air committees. I'm sure of it. Meanwhile, I'm going to use the influence that I have along with the people in the middle influence, and I'm going to suggest that each proposal that comes to our business meeting has criteria for evaluation and evaluation times. And I'm going to suggest that we have go-rounds when we do meetings. And I'm a facilitator there. I'm one of the ones that's returned. The spy who came in from the cold, the facilitator who was disgusted about who came back. And I'm just going to do go-rounds, and I'm going to go, hey, y'all, I think you'll like this. Let's try this for the next 5 minutes. And if you like it, let's keep doing it. People love go-rounds. Once they experience it, they go, this is so fair, this is so kind. The shy people get to talk, and the big mouths don't talk too much. And so it's going to be a self-organizing universe, I think, with people loving what they experience, and then there'll be a clamoring to start it. Fort Collins, Colorado was scared to death of co-housing, and one successful community came in, and then a big developer came in and wanted to develop this other bunch of property, and the neighbor said, let's get one of them there co-housing things instead. Let's find that Jim Leach developer guy and have him do co-housing in that vacant lot. And this was the only time kind of a rural western town ever clamored to have an intentional community in their backyard. I'm guessing that kind of thing could happen here. Success and happiness and joy and goodwill and people talking it up is a meme that'll spread, I think.
No, so I think it just really sort of behooves us in the rollout to think about elements which we think, would build a sense of trust and would be give us the biggest bang for our buck in terms of people feeling safe and feeling trusted.
Yeah.
And then,
And another thing,
build from there. I think that's a really very good point.
Another thing you could consider is like, you know how you're learning to ride a bicycle, so you start off with a tricycle and then you get a bicycle with training wheels, and then pretty soon you get one of them real sleek racer bikes that requires you to have quite an athletic leg to throw over the thing. You sort of like build up your tolerance for bikes, and you start out with fat tires and then you end up, So what if you said, okay, we're going to do an experiment. We're going to do a general circle, and we'll have a fishbowl of folks who can participate in these ways, but not this way. We'll see how we feel about it, and we'll evaluate it in 3 months, and again in 3 months, and again in 3 months. And 3 or 4 times a year, we'll have a whole circle meeting about topics that we think we'd want everyone to have consent in, like the dog policy. You might already have one of those. I hope you do if you've been here this long. But, real controversial stuff, or changing the dues, or raising the dues, or building that new da-da-da thing that we have to assess ourselves money for. Well, that would be like a whole circle. Do you have to get rid of the principle of the practice of whole circles just to do
No,
this?
it actually, in our design, we are keeping it, and we've also talked about what decisions would go to the whole circle. And
There
they're
you
the
go.
things you're talking about.
Yeah. My guess is you could have the best of both worlds, and all of this would build trust in the system. And in some future years, with people getting used to this, they might say, we could take the training wheels off the bike now, Shall we adjourn?
And it's a wrap.
Thank you.